Dave and Jay. How are you today?
Not bad.
Doing okay. And you were in high school maybe roughly the same time as Sam, right?
Roughly the same time. I think we were actually in the marching band together a long, long time ago.
What'd you play?
I played the saxophone.
Wow. We seem to attract saxophone players here on the show.
Maybe you can come in and play your saxophone, because we're still trying to get Sam to do her color guard routine, and we've yet to see that. So.
Oh, well, she could definitely do that probably still. We could do a little duet.
There you go.
Common Council president here in Utica, Mike Galimi, is also a saxophone player. So maybe
excellent.
you guys could do something together for us there. We're also, speaking of music, we're kind of mourning the passing of David Bowie today, passing away at the age of 69 over the weekend. Were you a fan or not?
I was. My brother-in-law was a huge fan. I was a kind of a more casual fan. My brother-in-law was a huge huge fan. I texted him this morning. He actually said, "I'm going to change the subject. How's your dog doing?" So it was a deep loss for him, I'm sure.
Wow. How old is your brother?
He's about 32.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. David Bowie influenced a lot of people for sure.
And another loss we've been talking about actually out your way is the Stampede Steakhouse, formerly Joel's. Are you aware that the fire destroyed?
Small world. Yeah, actually, it's where my parents-in-law to be from Utica told me to take them to dinner when I asked them if I could marry their daughter. So it's the only time I'd ever actually been there.
Wow.
But that's where they had me take them, and so when I found out the news, it was very sad just because I remember taking them there about a year or so ago to talk to them about that, and I'm glad the bowl is still standing, and I hope that the builders are able to persevere through this and rebuild, because I know it's a very popular spot for a lot of people.
Yeah,
sure.
Yeah. What year was that, by the way, that you went to your one and only dinner there at Joel's?
That was just about a year ago. It was about 2 years ago. I'm sorry. I've been engaged for about 2 years.
So they said yes. That's a good
they
sign.
They said yes. Yeah, it was a very amicable dinner, so it was great.
There you go.
All right, David, you, of course, are heavily involved with the Oneida County, or the town of Oneida Library, I should say. And I know we've had some guests in to talk about the situation there and what's going on.
Yeah, tell us about what you've outlined here in your op-ed piece, your take.
Certainly. So just to give a little background, I live in Rochester, New York now, and I write a personal blog called Commonwealth, which is an unofficial continuation of work I did with the Democrat and Chronicle here in Rochester, which I worked with their editorial board. And the whole goal of it was really to foster dialogue and to shed light on topics of importance to the public and bring new perspectives. So I think I certainly have achieved that through this blog post, and I certainly never expected it to garner this much attention. It was surprising to me. I mean, just in the first week alone, my blog is it's fairly good readership here in the Rochester area, but it surpassed both my 2014 and 2015 viewership just in the first week of the year from the attention it got from the Oneida area. So people are certainly concerned about this issue. And I really came about it through just hearing about it through word of mouth, through friends and relatives from the area. Did some research on my own. And as a former resident of Durhamville, which is one of the outlying parts of it, I would have had to walk 45 minutes to an hour to the new location of it. And I actually did that walk a few times instead to say, from my house in Durhamville to Oneida, if I missed the bus or was trying to hang out with friends, and that just didn't seem like it was a very possible thing for a lot of people in the area. So I wanted to think about how is this affecting people who might be in those areas like Durhamville or Wamsville, the outlying areas. Is this truly going to be a community center? And the outline that I put together in the first blog was really just to think about how can this project become more of a unifying opportunity for the area, because it certainly has become very divisive, and I feel as though the board has not helped to really unify or to shed light on the issues that will help bring people together around this project.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting, and I think that's been one of the complaints in which the process really unfolded. A lot of elected officials out there saying, I wasn't aware of what's going on, how this even came to take place. As far as I know, I was only aware when we were up to vote on this issue. So how does this really transpire or unfold in that nature?
Well, it's an interesting question. I mean, I think they followed the process, fairly well through from 2012 forward. But if you go back to interviews done in 2012, I think there's some inconsistencies that the board has not clarified. And again, I understand projects like this change. I understand that conditions being what they are for public funding, that they need to take the right and appropriate steps. But I think they've done, injustice both to themselves and people who have raised private donations that have, led to, nearly half this project being funded by private funds and grants. But they've done a poor job of communicating some of the things that have changed since 2012 when they initially announced this project. And one of the biggest things I think, Dave and Jay, is that, again, the understanding of the public of what happens is that the voters have to first vote for the referendum to have their taxes raised. And that was actually done earlier last year. And so the voters did do that. But based on my understanding, I'm not a legal authority, but based on the research I did, law firms, this one in particular is called ORIC, has done a study, and they said that the next step, they actually say in their brief, they write on this, the voters have voted, and great, we're going to pick up the wallpaper, and they say, wait, no. They write this in this brief, and they say, so many of our clients make this mistake that it's now up to the authorities, the affiliate authorities, which in this case would be the other towns, to then vote on the bonding resolution. And the towns of Verona and Vernon in particular voted that down, and now they're bringing that lawsuit forward. And the other really big inconsistency is that in 2012 they announced that they were not going to take steps to utilize public bonding. That obviously has changed, and I think, again, there's an opportunity for the board to come forth and be, forthright about the things they're doing. I think third, Dave and Jay, I think the other thing, too, is I'm not against the library. I think a lot of people would say those who have protested or said, that there is a lack of information are automatically labeled as anti-library. I'm certainly not anti-library. I think the library plays a big role in any community. I think that the major thing for these individuals on the board of OPL and its directors are that they need to talk about the services, and that's the column that I wrote in the Oneida Daily Dispatch, really focused on. They need to talk about the services, and the response this weekend in the op-ed does outline some of those services. But again, my goal is to help to shed light on the issue and have people talk about it, and I think I've accomplished that because I did talk about some of the services they have. But up to this point, we hadn't heard a lot about that. So I'm hoping that they will continue to use this as an opportunity to shed light on the issues, the services they plan to bring to the library, and I think that's a really important thing for them to continue to do as they move forward.
Talking to David Grome, whose guest column in the Oneida Dispatch about the Oneida Public Library there, and has drawn some other comments from others like Rick Kinsella, who's on the Oneida Public Library Board of Trustees. We had him on the show a while ago. Safe to say that you and he are at odds with regard to some of the issues here?
Well, I think that, Mr. Kinsella did a nice job, I think, of outlining, again, the services that they've done to date, the research that's been done to date. I think the only thing we're at odds about, I think, is that the principle of how the public needs to be engaged. I think that the board needs to remember they're elected by the public. They're very much like any public official. They should be held accountable to the things they've promised. And I think that, again, they have a right. The public has a right to know about what the next steps of this are going to be. And there's been a certain tone by the board that this is too complicated for the public to understand, and that that this is much more complex than people are making it out. Well, that's the job of any public official. I mean, politics, public policy, they're very complex, but that's the job of a public official to make it transparent for the public to understand. So certainly, again, I'm not anti-library. I think I support this project, and I applaud the work they've done to date for grassroots organizing and fundraising. But I think that they owe the public really forums. I would recommend, if they wanted to host more public forums. Again, those are just some steps I've seen of other public projects. When you bring town hall meetings together, you collect that input, whether it agrees with the board or not. That needs to be out in the open, and I would recommend that Mr. Kinsella and the other board members consider those types of tactics as they move forward with this project.
More transparency, Jay. That's what we keep hearing in all sorts of forums here about different topics, not just this one, but the proposed downtown hospital location in Utica, too. More transparency. Everyone wants this.
Yeah, and I think back to David's point, we've spoken with Councilman Fritz Schertz out of the town of Verona, and kind of the same idea. Listen, I'm not against the library idea or the deal itself. It's the process. Just make us more aware, get us more involved, and maybe that will move things along in a better nature.
Absolutely. I would agree with that 100%.